Hey everybody, this is Dustin with Lone Oak Studios. Here I am with my first video for the YouTube world. So bear with me. I'm not going to promise amazing production quality. Video is not my forte. I'm a photographer, not a videographer. But I had something I wanted to share with you all, so bear with me while I embarrass myself. Oh, I got an email. Okay. So what I'm here to do today is to do a little follow-up to the article that I wrote back in September and was published by Petapixel and kind of went a little bit viral. I got way more response than I'd ever expected to get from this little article. But the article was about why I sold my Nikon D5 camera system in favor of the Fujifilm X-T2. I've always been a Fuji fan. Since the X Pro 1 and the XE1, back to those days, and I've used the X-T1 and the X Pro 2, so I'm pretty familiar with the Fuji system, and the image quality out of those things is incredible. It's as good as anything else I've ever used. But there had always been a little bit of an issue with autofocus in these systems. Mirrorless systems, though I think they're the future, they've trailed a little bit behind DSLRs with focus accuracy and speed and consistency. But when the X-T2 came out, it was such a huge leap forward from the Fuji system. It was better than anything else they'd ever done, and I got caught up in that hype. So I bought one, and I used it for 2 or 3 outdoor summer weddings in South Texas, full of sunshine and great light that's easy to work in, and I was blown away by the camera. The focus system was great. It was accurate. It hit every single time. So I figured, oh, these things are so small and light and they're so powerful. Why am I carrying around a 5-pound brick of a camera like the D5 when I can be carrying around these small light X-T2s and get everything I want to get? So I sold my D5, partially because of the reasons I just explained, and partially because I was gearing up to quit my day job at the time, and I needed the money. Didn't really say that in the article. I probably should have, but that's what it was. So I sold my D5. I bought an X-T2. I still had my X Pro 2 as well. And I kept a couple of my other 2 Nikon bodies, which was a DF and a D750. But as I got into October and November, and weddings started to move indoors into some darker banquet rooms and churches, I started to really struggle a little bit with the X-T2. Image quality was still great. Dynamic range was fantastic. Just a great sensor. High ISO was great. I could get usable images at ISO 12,800, which baffles me from a crop sensor. I mean, that's full frame territory, but it is what it is. I was able to do it and get good stuff. But I was noticing that my hit rate was far, far lower than I was comfortable with and used to with my Nikon system. The 750, the DF, and of course the D5 were much more accurate and consistent with autofocus. And I started to notice that it was really a problem. I was missing way more shots than I would ever want to miss. Luckily I didn't ruin anybody's wedding because I knew what I was doing, but it became a hindrance to me, and I was having to fight the camera more than I want to at a wedding. When I'm shooting a wedding, I just want it to be an extension of my hand and my mind, and I want it to just work for me. And the Fujis were giving me trouble, and I was struggling. As somebody, like I said, as I was gearing up to quit my day job, I ended up doing that December 31st. This is my livelihood. This is what provides for my family. I can't take the risk of missing shots. So I decided that the X-T2 wasn't for me. I ended up returning it, and or maybe selling it. I don't remember how long I had it. Maybe, I guess I sold it. It was a couple months that I had. But I sold it and decided to go back to using my Nikons as my primary system. And at the time they were the DF system. The DF is a fantastic camera. It's just a sexy looking camera, but that doesn't matter, obviously. It's a great image quality camera. It's got an amazing sensor for high ISO, and everything is just beautiful about it. But the severe limitation of the DF is it has one card slot, and the autofocus system is just meh. It's okay. So I made the decision that the DF was not going to be my primary camera as I moved into doing wedding photography full-time January 1st. So I decided that I needed a system that I can rely on completely from a consistency standpoint. So I decided to use my D750, which I'm filming this on right now, as one camera, and I decided to move back to a higher-end professional build Nikon body for my main camera. So that entailed me going through a couple of trial things. So as an NPS member, I was able to ask Nikon Professional Services if I could borrow a couple of cameras to evaluate, and they were gracious enough to send me a couple, and I asked for a D810, which I hadn't used before, and a D4S, which I hadn't used. I was familiar with the D4 and the D5, and I had previously owned a D800. So I wanted to try those to see how they would do, and both were great. It was a hard decision. I almost went with the D810 just because it's smaller and lighter and easier to carry around and manage for the length of a wedding, a full day event. But 36 megapixels just bothered me. I don't want to have to buy more storage and slow down Lightroom even more. So then I leaned more towards the D4S. The D4S is fantastic. Same sensor as the DF, fantastic autofocus, great dynamic range, everything I needed to do, but I remembered how good the autofocus was on the D5. And I remembered that it was the most consistent, fastest, most accurate autofocusing camera I've ever used, which it really is pretty amazing. And I knew that if I bought the D4S, I would just want the D5. So I sold my two DFs and a few other things that were lying around that I didn't use or need anymore. Decided to scale way down. Had too many cameras and lenses and all that anyways. They're just tools. I don't need all that anymore. So I decided to sell that stuff, and I've done it. I probably owe a lot of people an apology. All those people that hammered me for making a stupid decision, as they said, telling me that the reason I sold my D5 was because I was an idiot. I don't believe that that was the case, but I've kind of changed my mind and I've come full circle, and I'm hoping that this decision will last me for a long time. So I have decided to go back to the D5. I just got it yesterday, just came in. What can I say? It's beastly, it's enormous, it's huge. It is the complete opposite of a Fujifilm X-T2 in a lot of ways. But it's a tool, and the purpose of a tool is it needs to work well for you. And I trust this camera completely. Pair this with my Nikon D750, and I can shoot in any environment I'd ever want to shoot in. Any situation. I'm not worried about it at all. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case with the X-T2s. It left me worrying a little too much about my gear, and I don't want to have to worry about my gear when I'm at a job. I just want to go shoot it and trust that I'm getting what I need to get. So that's what I did. This is going to be my workhorse. This and the D750. Who knows what Nikon's going to come out with next. They'll probably come out with the D760 that's probably a baby version of the D5. If that's the case, I probably won't buy it because just as I complained about in my article, the lack of dynamic range from the D5 being a step backwards for Nikon over the last few years, where they've been producing these amazing dynamic range beasts. If the D760 is a D5 and a smaller body, I won't buy it, because I want to be able to have that extreme dynamic range capability if I need it, and the D750 provides that for me. So we'll see, but I expect this to be my workhorse for a long time. I've learned my lesson. There's no sense in buying and selling and swapping back and forth and doing things 100 times. That is stupid, and that's what an idiot would do. And I'll admit it, and I'm not going to be that guy anymore. I do still love the Fuji system. Don't get me wrong. This camera I've kept since the beginning of this whole experiment. This is my X Pro 2. I use this camera all the time. It is such a joy to use. It's beautiful. I probably get more questions from guests at weddings and Uncle Bob's than I want when I use this. But that's okay. I don't mind that. If somebody has a question for me, I'm happy to answer them. I'm a photo geek. I love to talk photography, and I'll talk about it with anybody. So I still use this camera a lot. This is the 35 1.4, which needs to go to the doctor because it broke. So that's going to go. I love the 56 1.2. Those are my two. This and the 56 are my two favorite lenses for the and the 18 f2. I love the 18. So that's what I have for the Fuji system. I'll continue to use that for getting ready and different parts of the wedding day, and I use this a lot for my family and travel stuff and vacations. But this is going to be the workhorse. This is the tool for the job for me. So my apologies to everybody who ran out and bought an X-T2 on my recommendation. I'm not apologizing because you bought a bad camera. You bought a fabulous camera. Please don't take this that way. But I feel like I may have overhyped my experience with the X-T2 looking back on it. It's an amazing camera, and there are wedding photographers that are just absolutely blowing my mind with what they're doing with it. I can think of several off the top of my head. But for whatever reason, it just didn't work for me. Maybe that was user error. Maybe that was my fault. It's still a great wedding camera in every way, but I struggled with it. This is just my opinion. So, yeah, that's that. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope to make some more in the future. Leave some feedback. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. And we'll see you soon. Later.